5 o'clock, and I'm going to call the Goldsboro City Council special meeting for Friday, June 18th to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Ham.
Here.
Councilmember Jones. Here. Councilmember Broadway.
My name is Bill Broadway, and yes, I am back there by Zoom.
Councilmember Polak.
Present.
Councilmember Matthews. Present. Councilmember Aycock.
Here. Next item is to adopt the agenda. You have a copy on your desk in front of you. Motion to approve the agenda.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Ham.
I was waiting for you to go, but that's okay. Here. Excuse me, I approve.
Councilmember Jones.
Here. Approve.
Councilmember Broadway.
Yes, Bill Broadway.
Councilmember Polak.
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews. Yes. Councilmember Aycock.
Yes.
Okay, so we have two items to be discussed this afternoon, and following the discussion, we will move to take action on those. And those two items are the budget ordinance for the fiscal year 2021 and 22, and the resolution establishing a new schedule of fees and charges relative to the operation of the City of Goldsboro wastewater treatment facility. At this time, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Ham, council members, thank you for allowing us to go through this today. I would like to thank Catherine and the finance team for putting this presentation you're about to get, the ordinance and the resolution together in the midst of closing out the FY 2021 budget and preparing all the budget amendments that you will see on Monday night. It's been a tremendous amount of work, and I am very thankful for what Catherine and her team has been able to do. So I will turn it over to her at this time to provide you a presentation on the adjustments that have been made since our last meeting.
Hey, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. What I have for you today is we've got a presentation, provides an overview of the budget that we've discussed now for the past several weeks. In your packet, you should have the actual agenda cover and the actual ordinance for the FY22 budget, and also that resolution for the water reclamation facility fees and charges. The presentation is basically going to summarize what is in the agenda memo, and probably the agenda memo just has a lot more detail to it, just an overview as to the process. So I was going to go through my slides. There's not that many. It's maybe 10 slides or so that we'll go through and just talk about it, and we'll give you all the opportunity to ask any further questions when we get to the end. So I'm just going to get started. So we have the proposed fiscal 22 budget is $68,400,000. It represents a $4.4 million increase over the FY21 adopted, which was $63.9 million. That represents a 7.04% increase from the prior fiscal year. So how this breaks down, this is just kind of an overall summary. You've seen a lot of these figures before. Again, this is breaking it down by fund. So the operating funds that we are required to adopt annually, we have the general fund, stormwater, utility, downtown district, occupancy tax, and then the general fund capital reserve. All of these funds total to the $68.4 million that you just saw on the previous slide. And they break down your two largest funds, of course, your general fund, which is about $45 million, and your utility fund, which is about $20 million. At the bottom of this slide, you will see a summary of changes, so that you first were presented the manager's recommended on June 1st, and that total was $68.2 million. And then over the past 3 work sessions that we've had, council made several changes, and there are also some corrective changes that I've made in here that I'll briefly go over as we go through the slides. But those changes amounted to $175,000 approximately. That's in that middle column on the bottom of the slide. And then the proposed adopted that you have captured in the ordinance that is in your hands is the $68.4 million. Okay. I apologize, this is a little bit hard to see on the screen, but where does that money come from? Where does the $68.4 million come from? So across all these operating funds, and this is in order of, it goes from largest to smallest. So your biggest area is $24.7 million comes from user fees. So that would be like water and sewer charges. This would be like fees that we charge in Parks and Rec and golf, things that we charge at the Paramount Theater, GEC, and things of that nature. Property tax, of course, is, generally your general fund, and it's going to be that municipal service district fund. That is your next largest revenue driver. The next is sales tax, which is right at $10 million. It's showing the $9.97 million. That is strictly general fund money. Grants and other agencies, so this would be like the ARP federal grant that we're talking about. That is a good portion of that number. Then the next is state collected revenues of about $3.8 million. This would be like in the general fund, this is your utility franchise tax, your ABC revenue, your PAL bill money, things of that nature. Next, we have transfers and shared services, and that is really, shared services is where we have the utility funds pay the general fund back for services such as management, personnel, accounting, finance, and that type of thing. Capital returns, that is primarily made up of borrowing money, essentially. And then we have a couple of other small categories, and of note, I do always try to put fund balance in there, and that $150,000 fund balance appropriation is strictly from the occupancy tax fund. So all those big categories of revenue across all those funds adds up to the total of $68.4 million. This is just a graph that basically shows you that same information. And, when you look at it, again, user fees is the largest, it's 36.2%. Then property tax of 26.2% are your two largest drivers of revenue that you have coming into the city of Goldsboro. All right. So now this slide really talks to the things that the council has talked about in the past 3 work sessions that we've been in. So within the adopted or the proposed adopted ordinance you have in hand, it includes a property tax increase of 3 pennies, so 3 cents. We would be proposing to go from 65 cents per $100 of valuation to 68 cents per $100 of valuation. The property tax that is in the downtown municipal service district will remain the same at 23.5 pennies per $100 of valuation. In this ordinance, you have American Rescue Plan funding, general fund $1.6 million, utility fund $2.5 million, the occupancy tax fund approximately $28,000, for a total of $4.2 million of the rescue plan is being proposed in the operating funds. There is no 15% water and sewer rate increase included in the proposed ordinance that you have before you. And what does this mean? It means that in the water charges, we reduce that revenue about $1.1 million. In the sewer charges, we reduce that revenue approximately $1.3 million, for a total reduction of revenue of $2.4 million. Also included are these wastewater fees and charges updated by resolution that you'll also be voting on tonight, which will add approximately $14,000 to the utility fund. Okay, so this slide talks to where does the money go in broad categories, and it is listed in order of largest to smallest. So public utilities, out of this $68.4 million budget, takes the largest piece of that at $19.5 million. Public safety, which encompasses your police, your fire, and your inspections, takes up approximately $17.2 million. General government is approximately $7.7 million. Debt service, and this is debt service across all operating funds, is a little over $5 million. And again, across all organizations and all funds, capital expenditures are approximately $4.5 million. Cultural and recreational activities, $4.3 million. Environmental protection, so that's like your cemetery and your solid waste. That number is $3.5 million. Economic and physical development is $2.1 million. And transfers and shared services, so this is the money that's going out from the utility fund into the general fund to pay for those services, is approximately $1.7 million. Transportation, so that's like your streets, your street paving, your street utilities, that's $1.2 million. Special revenue funds, that is strictly the downtown municipal service district and the occupancy tax fund, $1.2 million. For your total expenditures of $68.4 million. And of course, as you notice, those two numbers equal, which by law you are required to do. You have to present an equal balanced budget. This is a pictorial slide that really talks about the same thing. Your largest expenditures, of course, being your public safety and your public utilities. Okay. So this slide talks to, the first slide when we talked about changes were revenue changes. These are expenditure changes that are included in the proposed adopted 22 budget that you have before you. We removed the Military Affairs Committee dues of $2,100 from the account called dues and subscriptions. Council wishing to participate will pay directly to the MAC. The next item is an error correction. We had 2 permanent part-time positions that were supposed to be abolished if the golf pro person that our golf director asked for was approved. I did not take them out when I did the manager's recommended. So I had the budget overstated by $32,000, and once we clarified that, basically it's a no net effect to the operating budget because I had to restore the benefits for the full-time person because they got cut. And then also in looking at their budget, they were short on some utilities and the lease expense for the sprayer and some other operational. So that $32,000 is just redistributed within the line items. I just wanted to make you all aware of that. Also something that it's kind of an internal thing that we were trying to clean up. I did a reallocation of maintenance-related contracts for heating and cooling, elevator, security system, pest control, fire alarm, generator maintenance, so forth, out of the city manager's budget to the public works, building and grounds budget, and the information technology budget, because those particular department heads actually manage those contracts. And it just did not make sense for Laura to have to pay those bills when she really wasn't the one in charge of them. So we reallocated those, and there is no effect to the overall operating budget, and that was related to the general fund. In the downtown municipal service district, we added the Wi-Fi extension for the downtown Center Street. There is no effect on the overall expenditures as the director was able to reduce other expenditures to fund that $15,000 capital outlay. The next item is the occupancy tax. It was discussed about allocating another $40,000 for advertising, which was to help sustain sporting events in Goldsboro. And as the director explained, the return on investment for the additional revenues in the general fund sales tax and the occupancy tax received from the hotels would exceed the investment. And I will just add that the discussion that I've had with the director, that we've had with the director, was approximately $70,000 in sales tax per event. There were approximately 4 events that they are trying to keep in Goldsboro. So that the math works out to about $280,000. That is not quite 3% of your sales tax number. So, investing $40,000, and they said approximately $7,000 per event, comes out to about $28,000 in hotel tax. So the occupancy tax net for them was maybe about $12,000 out of pocket. And then for the general fund, it would be approximately $280,000 in sales tax coming in. So the return on investment, obviously, it makes sense to do that. So we did include that extra $40,000 in advertising, and that will be an appropriation of fund balance out of the occupancy tax fund. In the general fund, in the agencies, we withdrew the funding from the old Waynesboro Park, and we reallocated it equally between the remaining 9 agencies, adding approximately $2,000 to each of those agencies. And then on the next slide, you'll see I gave you a comparison that showed the actual adopted and paid amounts in fiscal 20, in fiscal 21, and then in fiscal 22 what was requested, and in fiscal 22 the fourth column is the proposed, which is part of the budget you have. And that far right column, the proposed, does have the additional $2,000 per agency. And we did not allocate to wages and watch because they are actually going to be paid out of the CDBG CV Special Revenue Fund. We did not include mental health because that number was a flat $12,000 per year, and this is the final year of that. The GWTA allocation, it doesn't get included in that either. And I'm trying to think, was there another one? I think that was it, okay? All right, so we're at the final steps, and so the process, if you have any additional comments or questions, and if past that you do not, we would just ask you by motion to adopt the budget ordinance and the attached resolution for the fees and charges for the water reclamation facility. And then I would just let you know that a detailed budget book, similar to the one that you got through the manager recommended, we will do a final adopted book, a printed book for the city council, and then we will publish the final book on the city's website in the forthcoming weeks. Okay, and that's all I have.
Does anyone have any questions?
Miss Catherine, for my benefit and those watching, can you go back to the where it goes slide really quick and let us know what cultural and recreational, what that includes?
Yes, ma'am. So cultural and recreational will be your Parks and Recreation Department. Oh, thank you, Brad. I appreciate that. Parks and Recreation, golf, the Paramount Theater, and the Goldsboro Event Center would make up your cultural and recreational activities.
I make a motion.
I have a question. I apologize, I really can't see any of this.
Yes, ma'am.
So, the 4.4 million ARP fund that we agreed to go toward infrastructure and utilities,
Mm-hmm.
is that in there going to that?
So, if you're asking about the first part of the money where are you asking about where we're not going to do the rate increase, or are you talking about the other part of the money?
I'm talking about the 4.4 million that when I did a presentation and I asked that go to and I can't see any of that and I do apologize.
Oh, so go ahead, slide.
That is supposed to go to the infrastructure and the water sewer.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yes, ma'am. If you remember, originally in the questions I asked, you put 1.7 million towards general operating expenses that were discussed, and you can see it right there on the American Rest. You don't have the slides, ma'am? You have a copy of the slides?
You know what? there's something going on with my eyes
Okay,
today,
I'm
and
sorry.
I do apologize.
Well, let me, if I could just describe then, on this slide here, there
I
is
can
one.
see you though. I can see everybody else, but I'm not seeing this little stuff. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So of the 4.4 million, we're supposed to get, essentially 1.7 million goes to the general fund and 2.6 million goes to the utility fund. So there's a little left over there in this first tranche, which will Catherine, where are you gonna put that? That leftover piece, probably in a special revenue fund to be added when we get the second tranche, and then we'll make that decision later on.
So in your agenda packet, you will have an ordinance to create a special revenue fund for the American Rescue Plan with $8.8 million. The $4.25 million, you will see it allocated in that agenda item that you'll see on Monday night. And then the balance of it is going to be put in a contingency fund. And per state law, when something is put in a contingency fund, only the city council can release it. So you will be presented options from staff. So if the rest of the money is to be allocated towards specific infrastructure projects, Ms. Jones, then you'll see that and you'll have to approve it to be released out of that special revenue fund into a capital project fund so it can be spent. So it's really just going to be in holding until that point in time when you, as a council, are ready to release it.
Does that answer your question, Ms. Jones?
It does, but I don't understand simply because if our house is on fire, why are we not using all the funds that we need to help it?
We are using, the 8.8 million comes in 2 tranches.
Right, I said that, I shared that.
So, right, and the 4.4 is what's here being used in this budget right now. Or 4.25, right? There's an extra 150,000, give or take, that's gonna go into this other fund, to be added to the next 4.4 million we get.
Is there any other question?
One more thing, I don't want to keep us here long, but next year I would like for the council to consider how we fund these agencies. And I know, Ms. Catherine, we talked about making sure that it was a public announcement so that other organizations know as well. I think we all got the letter from Waynesboro Park talking about some of their expenditures and how this cut is going to affect them in their operations. So I do really want us to consider who and how we fund the organizations. You know, me personally, I would like to, if we could do one number, each organization that submits and qualifies gets maybe one number. I'm not saying that's how we do it. I'm just considering that after reading their letter and some of the information that they shared in their letter. So.
Mr. Aycock, did you have a motion?
I want to say one more thing. And I would like to say that next year that our department heads really talk to us about the things that are in dire need, that we need to really address right now, that would, anything that would put our city in jeopardy. I would like for those department heads to really make sure that we understand that by presenting that. Like, I would like to know, and I've seen some of it in my eyes. I've had an eye appointment there, so I've seen some of it, and I did ask about the 17%, where all that went, and I was given a slide, but I would like for us next year to really take a look at what is presented to the council, so the council would know, especially if there is something that is in dire need that we need to do, that we need to act on immediately. I would like to see that happen from the department heads.
And Ms. Jones, we have that budget workshop in February where the departments present, so that's a really good place for them to really pour their hearts out and tell you, you know, what the problems and the issues are that they are facing.
Yeah, and they
Yes,
need to they need to stress it. You know, if we don't get it, you know, they need to stress it.
Is there any further comment or question?
Yes, sir. First, I'd like to thank you, Ms. Nguyen, for your work and for considering meeting today to accommodate my needs for next week. Also, like looking forward, as Councilman Aycock spoke on, maybe we could have a hardship account set up in some form. I know a church I used to be a trustee at, every quarter we had a $4,000 line item for hardship for people that had problems with utilities maybe that could come under community relations. I don't know where we could come up with a formula to come up with a figure. And not just elderly, we need to look at both ends of the spectrum. Like I said, I know that during the corona, many of the elderly were, they received retirement pensions and Social Security. The millennials and people in my age group, working class, my wife was unemployed for 4 months due to her line of work. So we don't just need to limit it to one base. It needs to be an open application process of anybody that faces a hardship with utilities. Like I said, I know a lot of the elderly received monies, whereas a lot of people that were working class were laid off, and the meager amounts they got for unemployment were not enough to pay for the household. But in closing, I just want to say thank you for your hard work. I know it's can be physically taxing as well as mentally taxing, so I appreciate y'all's efforts, all department heads as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Can you repeat your motion?
I haven't read it yet.
Oh,
Mr. Aycock?
I thought it was a motion on the table.
No. I'll make a motion to adopt the attached budget ordinance for the budget ordinance for fiscal year 21-22 as presented tonight.
Second.
And the resolution?
And the resolution that is for the fee schedule.
Second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you poll the council, please?
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem Ham,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
I'm here. I'm not voting on budget, but I'm here.
okay, you're not voting,
You're staying?
I'm saying no.
okay. Councilmember Broadway,
Yes, this is Bill Broadway, and I say yes.
Councilmember Polak.
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews,
No.
Councilmember Aycock.
Yes.
The vote is 4-2. Motion carries. Is there any further business? There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned.